All right, and welcome everyone. This is our public relations discussion on models and approaches to PR. This is with our Journalism M14 Intro to Public Relations course. So, the four models of public relation. In 1984, James Grunig and Todd Hunt proposed these four models of public relations, and these theories are still used in the public relations societies today. So we have press agent or publicity, we have our public information model, two-way asymmetrical model, and two-way symmetrical model. So press agent publicity, this is our first model, and it's press agentry or publicity. It's a one-way style of communication where an organization pumps out information, often through a press agent, and if that helps you remember the term. And another word for this might be propaganda, because messages are often based on emotional appeals that can be presented as only part of the information and that has been distorted in some way. There's little emphasis on facts in this kind of model. It's heightened on persuasion, half-truths, a little bit of manipulation. So according to Arthur W. Page on Penn State College of Communications, the press agency model is the lowest level of ethical public relations. This model focuses on publicity to gain attention for the organization. Reminiscent of P.T. Barnum's publicity stunts, this model focuses on self-interest or stunts and to gain attention, whether good or bad. As a result, this model can be used to exploit a situation for personal gain. For example, pharmaceutical CEO Martin Schreikel hiked the price of Darafrim from $13.50 per pill to $750 per pill overnight, a 5,000% price increase. In response to the uproar, Schreikel replied that his responsibility was to the investors of his organization, not the affected patients. His actions thrust him and his organization into the media limelight and spurred many antagonistic Twitter exchanges. Some suggest that the price hike was a publicity stunt to bring Darafrim to the forefront of a broader audience, which it did, right? If so, the maneuver was successful, as the drug currently enjoys high name recognition beyond the scope of its current patients. Examples such as this highlight the often seamy side of press entry models. So manipulation and deception can be used to achieve short-term rewards, and that's not uncommon to happen these days. Like the teleological approach, the press agency models focuses on the outcomes more than the processes. So it considers the outcome more important than the means to get the outcome. As a result, the ethical outcome could be the result of an unethical process. So just keep that in mind when you look at this. It's categorized by one-way communication, which we just talked about, persuasion, half-truths, and manipulation. They are all used to influence audiences to behave as the organization desires. This model does not use formal research to guide its communication tactics. So we also have the public information model. So this model is another one-way style of communication, and it is called public information, and it differs from press agency in one important way. There is an emphasis on truthfulness in this model. The organization is genuinely trying to provide information that is meaningful to its audiences, while messages might also use emotional appeals to connect with those audiences. There is an effort made to provide truthful facts or information. The public information model, which is the second level, is often described as a journalist in residence model. The reason is it utilizes media relation techniques to place public relations information into news stories. Championed by public relations pioneer Ivy Lee, this model focuses on truthful and accurate information in order to gain third-party endorsement. So the two ethical orientations for this model would be axiology and deontology. Axiological ethical reasoning supports a focus on virtues, and Aristotle, a leading axiological ethicist, believed virtues guide ethical behavior. So a virtuous person has ethical habits that guide consistent ethical action. The public information model introduces the virtues of honesty and accuracy and encourages the consistent application of these virtues. Public relations professionals in this model provide honest and accurate information to news media. Unlike press agentry model, the practitioners in this model adhere to virtues and ensure the ethical development and dissemination of information. Okay. So this model represents an ethical step forward in the development of public relations practices. This model is also categorized as one-way communication. It uses press releases, and the public relations practitioner is often referred to as the in-house journalist. So this does not use formal research to guide communication tactics. So another model that we have is the two-way asymmetrical model. This model is presented and feedback from a small number of receivers is solicited for it. So more information goes out than feedback is returned, if that makes sense. This is why it's called asymmetrical. The message appeal used in this model usually involves a scientific persuasion base or expert. Sometimes an organization is thought to be trying to manipulate its publics using this model. So this advocates two-way persuasive communication. It utilizes persuasive communication to influence the attitudes and actions of key stakeholders. Its two-way design supports a feedback loop to allow public relations practitioners to monitor the effectiveness of the persuasive communication. While the model includes a outward focus, the central concern is the organization and its interests. So like the press agentry model, the two-way asymmetrical model adheres to teleological ethical reasoning. So as a result, the outcome is typically in the best interest of the organization. However, the feedback loop allows professionals to assess the associated benefits and costs to those external to the organization and make necessary ethical adjustments if needed. The two-way model also highlights the conflict of loyalty common in public relations practices. So professionals are often divided in their loyalty to their organization and their loyalty to key stakeholders, which we just gave an example of. The Golden Rule maximum offers a good guide for practitioners to balance this conflict of loyalties, and this rule instructs professionals to act in a manner that they would expect to receive from others. So public relations professionals can also use the test of sincerity when creating persuasive messages. And the test of sincerity, much like the Golden Rule, says that professionals should use only persuasive methods and arguments that, if directed toward themselves, would seem legitimate. So although this resembles the press agentry model, the two-way asymmetrical model offers important ethical advantages. So this model builds on professional virtues found in the public information model and incorporates a feedback loop in the creation of its persuasive messages. The two-way communication provides consideration for those beyond the organization that is absent from the press agentry model. And further, this model suggests that public relation professionals should consider the implications of their persuasive messages on others. So such a broadened focus illustrates ethical development of public relations from a self-interest approach to one that incorporates a concern for others in examples. So finally, the two-way symmetrical model of public relations. So this is considered the most sophisticated and ethical practice of public relations. This model focuses on dialogue that creates and sustains mutually beneficial relationships between an organization and its key stakeholders. This model attempts to minimize the potential imbalance of power between organizations and stakeholders found in an asymmetrical model of public relations and embraces a broader social responsibility perspective. So as a result, the organization is not considered the primary beneficiary of public relations activity. Rather, stakeholders and society are both important considerations, which is great, right? So Kant's categorical imperatives of equality, so go back to philosophy a little bit, were tied in. Equality, justice, and fairness were tied in to guide many of these ethical decisions within this model, which were spearheaded by Curtin and Boynton. Kant believed that there were certain universal laws that are reasonable, that all reasonable people must meet. These principles helped guide professionals in the development and sustenance of mutually beneficial relationships. Utilitarianism is another ethical reasoning common to the two-way symmetrical model of public relations. And utilitarianism reasons that the most ethical decision is the one that brings the greatest good for the greatest number of people. So from this standpoint, the organization is often subservient to societal needs as a public relations professionals seek the greatest good. So they're seeking to benefit all in transparency and honesty, basically. So the dialogue is central to the component of the two-way symmetrical model. This model supports continuous communication, two-way, between an organization and its stakeholders, and ethical literacy must guide the dialogue to ensure ethical communication, right? So there must be an opportunity for beginning and ending communicative interaction. So it's not just constant communication without a shut-off button, right? There's an ethical ending and beginning. There must be an opportunity for suggesting topics and initiating topic changes. And there must be the ability to provide a response and to have that response treated as such. There must be the ability to select channels of communication. Those are kind of standards that were built into the Habermas theory that offered 4 additional conditions necessary for it to be an ethical public relations symmetrical discourse. Okay, so those are just quick notes. When you use these guides, professionals can ensure ethical two-way communication, which is super important right now. Unlike the asymmetrical model, this symmetrical model includes a large societal focus. So communication is designed to include a myriad of voices in order to ascertain the most ethical action. Many research believe that, however, that the two-way symmetrical model represents an idealized practice of public relations, and the level of ethical development is important and kind of key in this practice. Okay, so this model is categorized as two-way. It's referred to as a scientific persuasion. In a sense, it uses persuasion to influence audiences to behave as the organization desires, but it's also it conducts formal resource and incorporates audience feedback into those communication tactics. So it uses scientific background and persuasion in a sense, but it also makes sure that that's reflective of their communication strategies in order to personally engage. Okay, communication and PR. Communication is the essence of PR. How are you directing your client? How well do you know your client? How are you creating lasting clients? And are you creating lasting clients? All of these models lay a blueprint for how to measure your communicative style to your client. So review these. These are top 4 communication styles. There may seem like there's only one answer to this, but that's not necessarily the case. You may have different types of scenarios that would need certain type of reactions communication-wise, and you can always adhere ethical standards to those, and maybe even create your own type of communication that's a blend of the 4. So, okay, just to update all of you on the foundational theories of how we communicate in PR. Thank you for tuning in.